I better get rid of that. This beeping.
Looks like we're live.
Yes, we're live.
Okay, let me get back to the Zoom. So from here, I have no way of knowing even if anybody's with us yet, but I guess people will be with us for the replay if not live. We'll figure this out. So hello, whoever's here now or later. This is Ani Lipitz. I'm Shifra Hendry. I kind of had the intention of making this a daily thing or an almost daily thing. Sometimes I'm sure with Ani and sometimes with other guests and sometimes just with you guys, whoever wants to show up. On Shabbat, I was outside in front of my house thinking about how interesting and uplifting and exciting it might be to just come on daily and connect with like-minded people in this these rolling waves of change that are rolling faster and faster. And for some reason, I've had a very big resistance since coming back to Tzfat here in Israel. There's something about the energy here that is very creative and artistic and very muffling. Like it's a known thing that every time I leave town, I get on live stream. But when I'm here, it's been impossible. This is the first time I'm actually doing it, I think, from here. So glad to be making that breakthrough. Anyway, so many things are happening and so many things are going to happen faster and faster that it's to me, it seems imperative to connect with people, like-minded people who want to be part of the solution, who want to get out of the triggers of fear, because we all get triggered into fear. It's being done on purpose. And get into, purpose, get into connection with each other, with our deeper selves, with Hashem, God, with the underlying meaning and purpose of what's happening. And so that's the intention here. Right now, I'm calling it Miracles and Metamorphosis with the hashtag Souls United. So we'll see what happens with that too. This is just a let's see what happens. I have an intention. Let's see what happens. So anyway, Ani, thanks for coming on with me.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess I want to talk about the thing that occurred to me to talk about. It would be a lot easier if I could see if what people are saying, but I guess that will happen tomorrow. We'll fix that up tomorrow. But there's this concept that I was thinking about earlier today of the idea that in this awakening, this whole awakening process, this redemption process that we're going through, that is prophesied by the Torah, there are difference of opinion on what way it can happen, whether it's going to happen in a natural way or whether it's going to happen in a supernatural way. And it seems like the consensus is that it's going to be both. So I want to talk about that because actually we were talking about that. That's sort of like what we've been talking about, like how much are we subject to the laws of nature? How much are we meant to break through the laws of nature through our challenges, through our desires, and how do we blend the two? And I think that's what I mean by miracles and metamorphosis, that what is miracles, we all know kind of what that is. Metamorphosis is when there's a state change, when there's a meltdown, a challenging of a way of being that causes some kind of serious disruption, like the caterpillar melting down in the cocoon, and then the opportunity to emerge in a completely new way. And I feel like we're getting that more and more and more, and that's the intention of everything that's happening, the divine intention. So the metamorphosis would be like dealing with the challenges on a human level. How does that work? I kind of work with that, Ani, with yourself and with other people, and then how to invoke the supernatural through doing that.
Yeah. I feel like the dealing with the challenges and the healing through the challenges on the human level is really the tachlis, or like the inner points of that is actually to make space for the supernatural. Because a lot of what we're dealing with, human challenges or healing work that needs to be done, is these very human patterns, these patterns that are within the laws of nature, of psychological, sociological, emotional, even spiritual nature that we've carried forward through all of our lifetimes. So it's like these patterns that we're going in and healing in whatever ways they're manifesting currently in our lives. And when we do that, we're basically saying, like, I want to be done with these natural patterns, and we clear up that bandwidth within ourselves to make space then for the supernatural way of processing and operating.
So what have you, if you're willing to talk about something from your life, or if you're not right now, something from some anonymous person that you've worked with, what's an example of that? Like a grounded example?
A grounded example. So a good friend of mine that I've been doing a ton of this work with, especially it's been very, very powerful doing a lot of past life stuff and going back and looking at the roots of those patterns and tracing the divine providence of the way things have worked out, like tracing them through lifetimes into now. And things come together when you do this type of work in ways that are like you see and experience God and the perfection of everything in a much greater way. It's very cool to see the web and the tapestry from like kind of stepping back a little and being able to see the bigger picture. But so we've been doing
wait, don't lose your thought, but I just want to make sure I understand. Are you saying that because you can look at past lives and patterns and things that happen, it makes sense out of this life, and you see the soul on a bigger level, more macro level?
Yes. And you start to get a more multidimensional, literal processing and experience of the world around you. It's been a very, very, very intense, but a very cool and healing thing. What'd you say?
I'm sorry, I'm jumping in, but I need to know, what do you mean by that? You get a much more multidimensional?
It's just experiential. Like you start being able to just get more, like feel more, understand more. And it's like, it's a total experiential thing. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Just all of a sudden you realize that you're operating within like this multidimensional space and time, and not just this intellectual understanding, but this understanding that everything is alive with multiple layers of intention and purpose and energy at all times. And that sounds like, it could lead you to be like, but it's actually very grounding. I'm really more grounded than I've ever been in my life. So what I wanted to say with my friend, and she'll probably end up watching this, so I'm not going to give too many details about the situation, but we've been doing this work intensively together, and she's been trying to move for a really long time, and it has just not worked out. It's not worked out. And then they were trying to make plans. It wasn't working. And then all of a sudden it was just like, you know what? We're just going. We're just gonna decide to get in the car and go. And they're going. They're on their way, and everything is falling.
Where are they on their way? Are they on the way to somewhere specific?
They're on the way. They are, yes, the place they've been trying to get to for a long time. So I'm not going to give details because I don't want to give away who it is. But yes, it's like it's a cross country thing. They're like actively on their way. They're almost to their destination. I've been keeping close tabs on it because I'm getting such an ahas from the fact that like we unraveled all of this stuff that we were looking at, like what's keeping you stuck there. And we really went into these patterns, these emotional, psychological, spiritual energy patterns that were carried forward from multiple past lives. We were putting the pieces together, and all of a sudden it's like the gate lifted, green light, go. And it came about in a way that she never expected. She had this whole idea of how it had to go, and this had to fall into place, and that had to fall into place, and the money had to fall into place. And all of a sudden it was like, oh no, there's a whole other option here. Let's just go. And so it's really incredible.
So that's this is something that happens to me, that I end up with multiple questions at one time in my head, and then I'm like, where do I go? So I'm interested to know if you can share something about the pattern, like what was that pattern? And the other question, I'll just throw it out too. How do I phrase this? There's so many healing modalities. Like I'm very, very, very aware of the power of self-work, of working with our old patterns, our emotions, our beliefs, our body, everything, our relationship with God. But when it comes to healing, when it comes to identifying whether it's somebody else doing healing on remotely on another person, or clearing something for someone else, or whether it's just that person getting to see, like you're describing your friend, getting to see multiple repetitions, multiple iterations of a pattern that the soul's been carrying for a long time. So why does the seeing of it open it? That's it.
Yeah.
Question, so, like, what is that law? What is that physics? What is that thing?
Right. So my personal theory and understanding is because of where we are in history, which is the time of the redemption, which like by definition means us coming experientially into what it actually means that I'm a multidimensional soul in a body, that I'm actually, that everything that the Torah teaches me about reality is literally true, literally true. And that means that I have all of these chambers of experience and memory within me that goes far beyond my limited ego narrative of this time around and my attachments to my stories about this time around. And that like who I actually am. And it's so threatening to the ego because all of a sudden it's like, whoa, the part of us that thought we were in control of everything is like, it's like, I said this to another colleague of mine. I was like, it's like you thought you were living in like a 3-bedroom ranch house. And all of a sudden you realize that there are like multiple more floors and wings to your home than you ever even imagined. And you've never been in there before.
Yeah.
And so you start to gain access to different parts of yourself. And within those wings and rooms and chambers are powers and blessings that have been waiting for you. It's like when the Rebbe always told us that our soul has infinite latent powers that we need to bring online and tap into. They're waiting there in these other chambers of our psyche. And
yeah, but they're oftentimes they're waiting behind like a dresser full of terror.
Yes, exactly. Because if these rooms have been sitting there untapped, you know, a lot of times they're full of junk that we've brought with us. And the Arizal said, like the foremost like Kabbalist and mystic who's kind of formed the basis for our paradigm of understanding mystical reality from a mystical perspective. He said that in Yemais HaMashiach, in the days of Mashiach, of the Messiah that the Rebbe announced 30 years ago we had entered, that everybody would start to essentially get a download of all of their past lives because Geula, redemption, is so much about self-ownership, total self-ownership. And that means being able to own my multidimensionality. It means if I can't understand myself in super deep and expansive ways, including who I've been, the things I've carried forward, how can I really take full ownership of myself in a Geulidic way? And I'm not saying that everybody needs to dive into past life work. I don't know that it's for everybody. I don't know that it's necessary for everybody, but for some people, I think for sure it's necessary to step into owning more of themselves. And, you know, some people eventually, like incidentally, they might be like, oh, that's a past life memory. That's cool. But they might not need to go like way deep into, you know, the stuff that happened to, I've found that what happens is like you start to extract power and it comes into your daily life, just like deeper sense of self. As I said, like it's brought me to be far more grounded and clear and powerful in my boots on the ground day to day. And a lot of people object to it because it's like, oh, how do you know it's not fantasy and you're just wasting all your time? Well, I'm seeing the literal immense positive effects in my day-to-day life, my ability to show up for myself, for my family, for God, and more. And literally the whole point is that like more of our powers come online. That is Geula. We were mandated to do that.
Right. It's right. Yeah. So I'm thinking as you're speaking that when we see something, I'm like the answer to the question that I asked, when we're seeing something, it's like, it's previous to seeing it, we weren't seeing it. And since the deeper parts of us are our subconscious, our superconscious, our soul is already seeing it, but it's the memories blocked. So there are large parts of us that are hidden from us. I'm just looking at it in the reverse. So it makes sense that when you open that door and you see whatever it is you were scared to see or you didn't have access to, so the whole thing remains open and now you have another part of your being that you didn't. We have to forget. I mean, there are people who remember, but we have to forget. I mean, think about it. I don't know how many lifetimes, there are different opinions on how many times different souls come back, but
well, there's also different aspects. The different parts of our souls had other lifetimes. So it wasn't always your whole soul. Souls are really complex. Souls are very complex. It's not this happy invisible version of myself. They're super complex. And one of the most powerful things that my colleague, my friend and I have found is that there are parts of the self, the psyche, the soul that have different kohos, different powers that have splintered off or split and will be stuck in these patterns, in these places in time. And one of the things we've actually kind of figured out how to do is kind of a retrieval of those pieces and reintegration with the current person. And that's probably one of the most powerful things in as far as feeling that power and that grounding coming back in. Because there's this concept of that we've talked about before, Pizal and Nefesh, the soul getting scattered around. And we're finding that this is actually one of the ways that you can locate those pieces and bring them back so you feel more solid and online as a person.
So you're doing it through a process of questioning, muscle testing, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. Emotion code, body code is our baseline modality, but we've kind of like spun off into something totally different. Because you have to, because there is, you can ask questions, but like you need a deep intuitive insight. You need like really deep intuition to be able to see the details of what happened. And it's really incredible. The level of detail, and they're usually not very pleasant, but to see the details and to be able to like really process the nitty-gritty. And we've been actually talking a lot about if men and women, like if they're like, because we've been a couple of women working together, and like the level of detail and the level that we've had to see and process has been like, whoa. But we're wondering if it's going to be maybe different for men, if men are going to do this type of deeper work in more of a chachma way, like a bigger picture, general theme way, as opposed to the women who are the bina, which is like the details, if the processing is going to happen differently.
Are you seeing it as a visual when you're in session? Are you feeling it?
Yes, it's for everybody sees differently. For me, it's visuals coupled with physical sensations and emotions. But everybody gets their impressions differently.
And this is an example of what I've been seeing so much with myself over the past several years, and with so many other people. I've asked this question people so many times, if they are experiencing new powers coming online, the ability to, have intuition, to see energy, to connect with people at a distance, to have their thoughts manifesting. And most people, probably 90+% of the people that I ask, which of course is our soul tribe, self-selected group, but people say yes. And I think that that when we are drawn to go down a certain path, like you're in this emotion code, body code healing mode. So that's one of your main thrusts right now, and looking to recapture pieces of yourself. So we get to a wall, and then, God, our soul, whatever, opens that wall, and we can see things and have like inner powers that we couldn't have before, which is really part of the metamorphosis.
Yeah. Yes.
I hadn't heard that about the Arizal, by the way. That's really interesting. And if you know more,
yeah, I heard that from Rabbi Leshus. I don't know any more details than that. Yeah.
Delicious. I don't know him, but I keep hearing amazing things in his name. Yeah. So there was a time in my life, when was it? 10 years ago, 12, whatever, that I was having a lot of dreams about basements, big houses with basements, which
me too.
Yeah. I heard you talk about
it. I had those too. Yeah.
And the idea that if this space could get cleared, then what could I create? And obviously that's subconscious, right? But then I had other dreams a few times, which I never really explored them. I guess I'm going to mention it here anyway, but with a prayer that it shall all be good. But I had dreams where there was a higher floor in the house that was really scary. Like one time in a old house, I went up and it was like, I don't even want to say, it was like,
yes, I have those same dreams.
Sorry?
I have those same dreams. There's of a higher level of a house, and the stuff that's going on in there. Like I've moved into a new house, or I'm looking at a new house, and there is Dafka always stairs, this creepy type of library thing, and then stairs down, and the stuff that's going on in up there and down there is like unspeakable. I've had that same type of recurring dream. And I know that there's this book I read as a teenager. I think it was called like House of Leaves or something like that. But it was literally about these people moving to this new house, and there was this basement that was like never ending, and they would go down there on these expeditions, and there was a whole parallel narrative being told in the footnotes. It was mind-blowing, but it was like clearly like a metaphor for the subconscious, and the idea of like the psyche being like a house in which the soul resides, and there's these rooms and these powers. It's just so apropos for knowing that there's other places in this house that we inhabit that we need to go into and make it the dir batachton and make it the dwelling place in these worlds in our body for our godliness, for God himself, which is our godliness.
Right. But if we're using this as a metaphor, like the question that I have for myself, so the basement thing, not the one you mentioned, but the one that I saw many times of just like this great potential space that was full of dirt and stuff, that seems kind of, that's like you get into the emotions, the traumas, you get them out, you know, the operating. But this other, this higher thing that literally was full of, you know, it felt like entity. What is that? What would that be? Is that, do you think, I mean, not that we know, but do you think that would be subconscious or some higher level of the soul that I don't know?
It could be like a level of the superconscious that is that, like, you do kind of have to clear your access to that out also. That might be something to think into and explore more. But I mean, have
you had that experience that you're afraid to go there? Like I shut in my dream. I've never actually talked to anybody about this. It was years ago, but I shut the door, like, you know, shut bar. Never go there. Sorry.
Yeah. It's the same thing. It was like, just totally avoid that. And the truth is that if I had to like plug that into my understanding of, you know, there are very powerful beings guarding the higher levels that are not evil, but they're terrifying because their job is to guard that access until we are ready and worthy to go there. So they're going to appear to us however they have to appear to keep us out until we're really ready to go there.
I really like that. Actually, really like that approach, because that not something. Yeah, that's the truth is. And actually, we've been talking around this topic too since yesterday. But I think the truth is that it's most productive and most correct, most true to see everything as God, which we know that everything is God. And then why do things take a certain form? Do we see it as a split, like this side attacking that side, or do we see it as a need for integration, for kind of growth? But yeah, that feels a lot better. Is that sound coming from me? I hear something beeping. Let me see if I have anything up. Doesn't look like it. Oh, well, that was stuff. Okay. Okay. So what do you think the path is? Like you said, till we're worthy, but let's not use the word worthy. Let's use an actual word.
Not worthy. We're already worthy.
What do I have to do to get clean? What do I have to do to get access to the, you know, or do I even want that? Like, what do I have to do to, you know, and this is where it comes in, you know, this idea of ita achishena, of the natural and the supernatural. Like, you know, for me, my driving force in life, even though I've gotten very supernatural over the years in so many ways, but my driving force has always been like, let it be good. Like, why do we have to have a world where people hurt? Why do we have to have a world where, you know, where there's poverty or sickness or fighting or, you know, mental illness or, you know, what, or any of it, like even on a personal level, even death, like the ideal world, like this is a divine world, but it looks so not divine in so many ways. And then the divine comes through. So how do we blend that? I'm just throwing this on the table, you know, if we could see people's comments, you know, if you guys who's on live and who's listening by replay, but write your comments. I'm going to be looking, because this is a conversation I think we all need to have. How do we heal? How do we heal?
It's not, you're right. The word worthy isn't really correct. I think it's really until we're ready, and we need a certain psychological, emotional, spiritual maturity and fortitude, which by definition means the ability to let go of these deeply held ego stories without being totally destabilized in our ability to function. So really the work starts with being able to be honest with ourselves and like face ourselves. Whether it starts with small things in our lives, or maybe you're like already like neck deep in the work and you've really faced some stuff and you've gone through some serious existential shifts. But I think it really starts with being willing to face ourselves, and not in a way of like, you have to face yourself and you can't handle the truth, like not like that type of thing, obviously, but being like, I need to come face to face with God within me. And that means I have to come face to face with all the masks I've worn and be ready to take them off and acknowledge that they're masks. And so to be ready to access that really means the ability, I think, to be psychologically and emotionally limber with ourselves, and to let our ego, which is really our sense of self, become more fluid. And that's where the healing work comes in, because so many of, the idea of a good practitioner is somebody who can really hold that space for somebody to let go of their sense of self and their sense of reality in a way that helps them to remain stable and safe and integrated, and
So
not
when
for
you
it
say-
to be,
Go ahead.
yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead.
No, finish your sentence. Sorry.
I was going to say, and not for it to be something that makes you totally unable to, God forbid, operate anymore.
So when you say masks and when you say what you just said, I'm assuming that you mean this. Somebody has a story about how they were mistreated when they were a kid, and life wasn't fair, and
so that could be part of it, but it really is like almost like our security blanket, like statements that we have about ourselves, whether they're positive or negative, because even things that are good, we have to be willing to let go of for better. And the Rebbe told us this all the time: got to go from good to better. Even one level of holiness, you have to be ready to let go of that to go to the next level. Yesterday's holiness is yesterday's already. And that's what I always bring up, the idea of the manna that fell from heaven to sustain, the Jews in the desert, that if on the day that came down, that revelation came down, that was Holy of Holies from behind the scenes. But if you tried to carry that into the next day, it would rot and become full of worms. So we have to be psychically limber to be receiving the life force that's always coming forward, and to plug into that, and to not have to hold on to these external definitions of selves, but this is how stuff was supposed to be and this is how it should be. We have to be able to be limber, I think, like psychically limber, and be able to tune into the call of the moment. But when we're doing that authentically, we are healthy and grounded.
I wonder if anybody's even understanding
What'd you say?
about. I wonder if people are understanding what we're talking about. But I would like to bring it to the framework of what's happening in the world, as banks starting to crash, whether it's by design, whether they're bailing them out, whether it's something is happening that is going to continue, and it's going to escalate, and it has to, because metamorphosis, I'll repeat this 1,000 times, I'm sure. Metamorphosis, I already have. Metamorphosis is the meltdown. It's a literal meltdown of a previous way of being in a safe, enclosed cocoon. Like if the caterpillar would melt down on the sidewalk, it would be eaten by a bird or someone would step on it. Do you need a... Okay, I'll just continue. But
Sorry, yeah, keep going.
No. I know you had. Do you have to go?
No, I have like 4 more minutes.
Okay. So if the caterpillar would melt down out of the cocoon, so I'd really like to speak to this in your 4 more minutes. Then it would not be safe. So the cocoon, maybe even lockdowns in some way, or the fact that we were like, who knows what the reasons are for things. But if we could just take your next 4 minutes to look at what's happening in the world, and how, in a grounded way, what would you say to people as to how to best use it, how to handle it, how to be aligned with it, how to see it, how to work with it?
I think that for most of us, thank God, our day-to-day life is still continuing. Like, we're still living in our homes, with our families, with the people around us, with our relationships. The infrastructure of our day-to-day life is still intact. And so the things that are changing are, for most of us, they're very much out there. Even if we're being affected by it, or we're starting to be affected by it personally, we need to be able to really just ground in, like, whoa, I'm actually safe right now. I'm in my home. I'm with this person. I'm in my body, and I'm okay. And so being able to just, and again, like, God has flooded the world with the knowledge of all of these somatic grounding techniques and other ways to be like, there's so much energy swirling around out there. Like you're saying, the greater infrastructure of society is rapidly shifting, and that's super disorienting. And a lot of us are feeling that on different levels of our own psyche. And at the same time, and maybe things are very rapidly changing for us in our personal lives as well. But anything that's solid that we can ground in, like, there's my favorite chair, and I'm just going to go sit in my favorite chair, and it's gray, and it's been with me for a couple years, and I have a nice blanket on it, and I can drink a cup of coffee in it. Like bringing it back to just those simple human details, I think is crucial, because the bigger stuff is swirling all around. And so those little human details that we can anchor ourselves in, I think is a huge part of that cocoon.
Which is exactly, in a way, the opposite of what you said before, that we need to lose our identity in the story and be in that ever-flowing moment. So I guess
It's the paradox. Yes.
Yeah, that's the theme of today, I think. You know,
But we have to be in that ever-flowing moment, but I also said in a grounded way. It can't be like I'm jumping from one thing to another in a way that is unstable for me as a human. Yeah, the identity has to shift, but I can't be like, you know what, I don't like my life anymore. I think the movement is like, I just have to leave and, you know, go somewhere else and do something. I have an infrastructure of life here. You can't just do that. But like, it's this balance of, you still have to do things in a way that makes sense, but what makes sense is going to be much more expansive. It's going to be much more different. We don't have to lock ourselves into this process, but we're not locking ourselves into anything, but we still need stuff to ground in.
Yeah, I think I like the way that the Rebbe puts it in a sikh on one of his discourses from actually the month of Nisan, which is coming up very soon. That we need to go one step beyond the edge of where we've been able to reach, like one step into, you know, you have an identity. Like my identity told me I can't do video. My identity told me I can't speak. I can't articulate. Has told me a lot of things over the time. And when I've been able to take one step past that, and it's usually more often than not, we only take that step because we're hurting, because something's too uncomfortable. It would be nice if we could switch that. Sorry about the sun. It'd be nice if we could switch that and start just doing things based out of a desire to grow. And we can do that too, but you know, want to move quickly. Like if something's uncomfortable, what is the one step that you could take beyond the way you've dealt with it in the past that might open up something? And that puts us we go out of our nature. And the Rebbe says this, we go one step out of our nature and then we're in the miracle zone automatically.
Yes.
The miracles go 100% together. And it doesn't have to be, as you say, you know, birth is contraction, relaxation. It doesn't have to be and shouldn't be just a quantum leap and now you're someone else. That's not how it works. It's you're yourself and step into the quantum and now you're an expanded new level of yourself. Then you consolidate, then another step.
Right. Totally.
That with our all those pieces of our souls and remembering all the lives. And yeah, it was occurring. I know you have to go. It was just occurring to me yesterday that like if we end up being in love with ourselves, we're going to end up being in love with God. And it's not just and then like we'll end up being in love with each other as well, because we'll see the infinity and the incredible beauty and the like-mindedness, the core experience that we're having, that someone else is having. We'll see things and say, oh, that's not good. See things in such a different way.
You're glowing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, my soul is just popping out of my chin.
Exactly.
Anyway, I don't know. You know, it seems a little esoteric. Like I was inspired to do this by, I don't know how many people know Eli Weber, Kabbalah Guru. He's on YouTube and Rumble and other places, and I've been following him for about 8 months. He's also Lubavitch, you know, he's also a Jewish person of the same stream we are, but he's like so relaxed. And so, you know, he just kept saying, just go out and video every day. He was saying to all of his audience, everybody needs to just make videos every day. So yeah, I'm looking for that stream of consciousness where we can all share together. And that's really what I would love this to be, where, you know, I have things to offer. My guests have amazing things to offer, but everybody here also has things to offer. And every one of us is a center. And it seems like the more we're together in realizing that and grounding into that and sharing that in community, the more powerful it will be. And we don't want to be victims of what's happening. We want to be co-creators of like, what is that future that we're pulling in individually, collectively.
Exactly.
Thanks, Ani. Thank you.
Have a
beautiful day. Have a beautiful day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.